Hi everyone, I'm Jack the Rambling Raconteur. I hope that you're doing well. I'd like to share a few thoughts on Space Invaders by Nona Fernández. This is an excellent novel that I highly recommend. It is set in the early 1980s in Chile under the Pinochet regime. And it's a book that draws on the memories, the experiences Fernández had growing up there in Santiago during that repressive Pinochet regime. The book focuses on a group of friends who all attend the same school and they're schoolmates. And they start out the novel being about 10 years old. And we follow them over the next few years, really just looking at a handful of episodes, vignettes from their lives. And what Fernández accomplishes is very interesting because she has these characters who are 10 to 14 years old grappling with their dawning understanding of the society they're growing up in. The dangers that exist for them, for their families, for each other, and the way that they're trying to develop the language, develop the understanding to shape what they're noticing. That at no point does it sort of jump right out and say like, whoa, someone was arrested right away at the beginning. It's rather that things seem normal. This is how their days go about. These are children growing up, and in a very real sense, sort of the last generation to grow up under the Pinochet regime. And so that what feels normal to them, they start to notice these little pieces that are different, these little moments that they're noticing and that they're trying to sort of recall in their conversation with each other, the way they're sort of writing letters to each other in the 1980s. And the language that Fernández uses is really interesting because she never allows the characters to know something they wouldn't quite know at that age, or to say something they wouldn't quite be able to understand and comprehend at that age. And so it works very well, but it's very evocative. And so there are characters who try to conceptualize things in different ways. Some think of this as the strange moments of reality are sort of like those moments in our dreams where things aren't quite normal. When the stranger shows up, or when there's the car that's suddenly new to the neighborhood, or when someone does get in trouble. In another sense, the title Space Invaders comes from the ways that the characters will gather and play Space Invaders on an Atari. It just so happens that video game system belonged to the brother of one of the friends who accidentally drowned. And so there's this sense of danger around even the metaphor of Space Invaders. The chapters are sort of identified as first life, second life, third life, fourth life, game over. And that in a sense is the different years that they're growing up in this world. But I wanted to give a sample. Sometimes we dream about her from our far-flung mattresses in Puente Alto, La Florida, Estación Central or San Miguel, from the dirty sheets that mark our current location, tucked away on cots that cradle our tired bodies that work and work at night, and sometimes even during the day, we dream about her. The dreams are all different as our minds, different as our memories, different as we are and as we've become. And it then goes on to list the different aspects of this individual, this one friend that they're all remembering, that they're all dreaming about. And gradually it becomes clear that this friend that they all think of, that the novel sort of revolves around, is the daughter of a member of sort of that security police under the Pinochet regime. And so what feels strange, what feels different when a brother gets in trouble, when an uncle is arrested, when a cousin is arrested, it's possible that their schoolmate's friend is the one, or their friend's father is the one doing that. And what that does to a child's psyche, the way that they spend time together at the same parent-teacher conferences there at the school, and they go and the children all go off and hide in a room together and play sardines and have little, fun games, and maybe one of the children is attracted to the girl and wants to kiss her, and yet there's this sense of something's different. If you make an error, if you were to pull her hair, what could happen to you? If you were to, be in a relationship and not have it go well, what could happen? And that sense that is unsettling creeps in on these children. And so for Fernández to reveal that is very interesting. Another chapter begins, we don't know whether this is a dream or a memory. Sometimes we think it's a memory creeping into our dreams, a scene that escaped from one person's head, lurking in everyone's dirty sheets. Notice the dirty sheets. It might have been lived once by us or by someone else. It might have been staged or even made up. But the more we think about it, the more we're sure it's just a dream that gradually became memory. If dreams and memories were truly different, we might be able to identify its source. But on our memory lists and mattresses, everything is mixed up. And the truth is that it really doesn't matter anymore. And so we have these characters remembering their childhood, remembering, was that a dream? Was that really scary, terrifying moment in my life when I was with a friend passing out some pamphlets and some flyers about a march, and suddenly someone pulled up and, wanted to know what was going on, and they took me in for questioning, they took my family in for questioning. Was that something that actually happened to me? Was that a really bad nightmare I had? And that way that the characters sort of conflate these together, in a sense, they don't forget that these happened, but they don't want to linger on this sense of psychological trauma that seems to underlie their childhood and their adolescence. Is very effective. And it goes on. Maldonado says it's someone from her father's job, Don Gonzalez's job. Maldonado says his name is Uncle Claudio, and he's funny. He likes to kid around. He lets her smoke one of his cigarettes. Riquelme says that a week ago he came to pick up Gonzalez up at Riquelme's apartment after they had been working together on a science project with Acosta and Maldonado. He was sitting in Riquelme's dining room drinking a cup of tea, and he talked for a long time to Riquelme's grandmother. Riquelme says he's nice. He promised to take Riquelme for a ride in the red Chevy whenever he wants. Probably he would let him smoke one of his cigarettes too. I've never been in a red Chevy, neither has Riquelme. I once had a toy Chevy when I used to collect little cars. It was my favorite, but I don't know where it is now. It got lost. The man in the red Chevy smiles at us from the car, holding one of the flyers we've just scattered. He must have picked it up from the ground. Hunger March in the clutch of Gonzalez's Uncle Claudio. Riquelme nods back at him. I do too, though I don't know him. I even raise my hand. I have a secret fantasy that he'll take me for a ride in the red Chevy. And they're so excited by this sense of novelty, and it reminds him of a toy, this almost stream of consciousness this boy is having. And yet he doesn't realize that at any moment his life could be utterly changed or ended because he's been passing out these Hunger March flyers. And so the book is very, very effective. There's also a passage that is haunting and yet absolutely hilarious. And that's what Fernández really seems to be able to pull off across this book, is that blend of very deep humor that's also very, very dark and very terrifying, where the one's father, who's a member of the security police, has lost his hand in an accident from an explosive device. And so the children are terrified to go over to the house for school projects, because the one kid who goes over finds out about the fact that there are all these different types of prosthetic hands upstairs. And it just terrifies the 10-year-old. And the way that the different friends try to perceive that, the way that they try to contextualize, wait a second, that's another piece that's novel and it's different. And it lends an element, a real element to the danger. It is, again, part of their life, part of their development, their adolescence. And so, again, this is a book I highly recommend. I look forward to reading another work she wrote called The Twilight Zone. And this translation was from Natasha Wimmer. Just absolutely love this. I was, of course, reminded of a number of writers. That blend of humor and just real fear reminded me, of course, of Kafka. I think he feels like a touchstone in some ways on that. The fact that this was about a totalitarian regime in South America reminded me of the book I read a few months ago, The President's Room by Ricardo Romero. And I found that to be an equally fascinating book. And the fact that both of them really deal with a child's perspective in a very authentic way, in a way that doesn't feel artificial, in a way that feels like the closer to the authenticity that I think people are looking for when they approach some maybe the stories of J.D. Salinger or the novels of J.D. Salinger. I think that's what Fernández and Romero are able to accomplish in their works. The other work I was reminded of was one I also reread, and I'll probably be doing a video on in the near future, Chess Story by Stefan Zweig. And there we have, again, a character trying to sort of recall his past in a totalitarian regime, in his case, Nazi Germany. But the tone was very different. And so it was interesting to sort of see the way that an adult processes that real fear, that terror, and the way that writers show children processing fears that they themselves grew up with. So I found both of those very interesting, sort of that contrast to be interesting. But let me know if you've read this book. Let me know if you've read any of the other works by Nona Fernández. if there are other Chilean writers that you are a huge fan of, because I look forward to reading much more from her in the future. Thanks, everyone.